Uh, Hello. Thank you for being here. And I think you're all in for a real treat. We're going to have some engaging and exciting conversations about artwork and the universe and the nature of reality and what it means to be an artist. It's going to be pretty enjoyable. My name is Stephen Snyder. I am the Gallery and Communications Coordinator for the West Vancouver Community Arts Council, and I'm thrilled to have three incredible artists with us who are all currently on display in the exhibition Particles and Paradoxes at the Meek Arts Center. We have Pepe Hidalgo, Pierre Leichner, and Susan Wolpert. We'll get to meet them in just a few seconds. As I said, the exhibition is on at the Meek Arts Center, that is in West Vancouver, which is on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Squamish Nation, the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and the Musqueam Nation. And we are incredibly grateful to our host nations for their stewardship of these lands since time immemorial, and honored to be able to engage in all kinds of arts and culture with and alongside our host neighbors and with everyone else. So this conversation is going to kick off. We'll meet our artists, then we'll take a little tour of the exhibit, and then each one of our fabulous artists have selected an artwork that they're going to talk a little bit more in depth about as kind of an overview of everything that's on display. And if you have any questions or comments for the artists, you can drop those in the chat, and we will get to that as we go. So first up, let's, oh, and we have a little bit of assistance. We have a couple of guests helping us out tonight. Let's start with Pierre. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you as an artist?
All right. Well, thank you, Stephen. Thank you for organizing this and for the council to facilitate allowing us to show our work at KMEeks, and for Pepe and Susan to participate with me and us together. Personally, this is my second career. I'm right now, and I would call myself an interdisciplinary artist with both a personal kind of inquiry practice as well as a socially engaged practice. So I do kind of both together. It is kind of my second career. I was in the mental health field for some 35 years before I decided that field was going on a downward spiral, and we all know we're experiencing it now. And I was very fortunate. I was able at some point to say, that's it. I'm leaving that to regain my sanity in the arts, maybe. And so since 2011, after getting my master's in fine arts, I've been practicing full-time, essentially, in a number of personal projects, as well as some socially community kind of engaged projects, both here and also in other countries. That's essentially, and today we'll be talking about one of my personal practice. Thank you. Oh, I just want to say before, yeah, I was more on the science side of the equation in my work in the mental health field, because that's relevant to what I'm going to talk about later. Thank you.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you so much, Pepe, or Pierre. A little tongue-tied because next, let's hear from Pepe, who's got a little bit of assistance here from Noreen. So Pepe, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, Pepe Hidalgo. I am from Spain. First, I am proceeded with the exhibition with my colleagues, and I am from Spain and study art in Holland, and I have exhibitions from Holland, Germany, Belgium, and Spain. And I come here 9 years next year.
9 years ago.
Next year.
9 years ago.
Carol, I see you. Okay, and I begin now. I work all light, begin to painted 13 yards with oil and change
With oil.
oil and change to acrylic in
Acrylic.
Holland, acrylic, because the secative is too long time.
Takes too long to dry the oil.
Yeah. And then begin with acrylic and continue to acrylic.
Acrylic.
Acrylic. Okay. And the exhibition I think is important because it's, for me, it's a work for space. My colleagues too. The work is similar space, and my work is for space too. Yeah, it's okay. Maybe as it's more difficult, Noreen can translate it better.
Very good, Pepe.
Thank you.
I'm trying to mute us. I can't. I'm
Oh.
frozen. My mouse is frozen. I can't mute us, so we'll be
It's
quiet.
all good.
Okay?
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Pepe. That was fantastic to learn a bit more about you, and as well, Pierre. Now, Susan, let's hear a bit about you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, everything's coming through great.
This is a new computer and I had to get help and I missed the beginning. I don't even know where we are.
We're just at the top. We're just getting to know everyone.
Okay. So I'm all I was worried I wasn't going to make you at all. So anyway, yeah. So I have been working with cut paper for many, many years. I began on the Sunshine Coast, where I exhibited at the Art Center in Sechelt. And when I moved to Vancouver, I took courses at various schools, and then went to UBC and got my degree in fine arts. And yeah, at UBC I was doing painting and drawing. And previous to that, I was doing chalk pastel. But when I graduated, I just went right back to paper because it it just seemed to call to me. And that's the way I think now. I think of everything in terms of paper. So I use embroidery scissors, and usually I'm working from an idea that I have in mind, and often I will have a photograph or something that I have made copies of and blown up to get the colors that I'm wanting, and then go from there. So, and I'm still cutting paper today. Is that enough?
That's wonderful. Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. Great to know a little bit about all of you, and I'm sure we'll get to know more about you as we continue this conversation.
Oh, good. I'm okay now.
Before we get to a little tour, a quick tour of the show, just to let everyone know, it is on at the Meek from January 17th, so it's already been open, until February 25th. So if you're watching this anytime between then, please go check it out. And if you're watching this after the exhibit closes, check out the artists and everything else going on with them. We've got links to their websites and social media in the description of the video. So now let's take a quick tour of the show, give you a little bit of a taste for what you could see. Okay. So this is what you come up upon on the main theater, the Grosvenor Theater of the Meek. This is what you see. So we start off on this side with some of Susan's work. And as you'd said, Susan, it's cut paper. So it's all of these tiny little pieces.
Mm-hmm.
which the video doesn't really show as well as going to see it in person. So I really encourage everyone watching to go check it out if you can. Yeah, and then we move on to some of Pierre's work, which love to hear more about why. But as you can see, they're doors. Say it's a pretty interesting and unexpected exhibition in terms of materials and subject matter and process and sort of inspirations and point of views. It's really fascinating and interesting and fun. When we were installing Pierre, this piece with all of these little bits of color, these little flecks that are here and held in resin on this door, reminded me a lot of Susan's work with all the tiny little circles of paper all cut and layered, and of Pepe with all of the, as we get to his work, you'll see there's lots of other little shapes and spheres floating around in those compositions. Yes, so the rest of this floor, then we move on to Pepe, some of your paintings. Pretty interesting. Maybe we'll, as we talk, we'll delve more into some of these aspects of everyone's work. But there's all these different levels of representation and the lack thereof, or if it is representing something, it's representing in an abstract way. So there's lots of really great points for viewers to jump in, I think, and be accessible to these maybe unfamiliar types of worlds that you're all presenting. So yeah, so the great thing about the Meek is that it has two theaters on two separate floors. So as you go downstairs to the McEwen Theater, we have a lot more room for a lot more artwork. Here are some more of Pepe's fantastic and lively still lifes. Which I always find the term still life amusing, especially in cases like this when there's so much energy and so much life happening and such interesting worlds. Yeah, and then our next wall, it's more of Pierre's fantastic mixed media recycled doors. As we sort of alluded to a little bit in the opening, some of the uniting themes in your artwork is one, your unique approaches to art making, as well as sort of your interests on varying levels in kind of the nature of reality and all of the things that make us and the world what they are, atoms, particles, gravitational waves, our own perception. So it's a very, very interesting dialogue that you're having with the viewer, with your artwork. And I cannot wait to hear more about it from each of you. Yes, and then we get to move on to the rest of Susan's pieces. I was at Meek earlier today and speaking with one of their staff, and they'd mentioned how everyone loved this exhibit. It's our first exhibit up there this year, and people were just so enthralled getting a closer look. Everyone's been trying to get closer looks at everything. How you all made it, all of the different textures and colors and shapes. It's been from their point of view, it's been a great success so far. And then we close out the exhibition. Yeah, with that fantastic piece from Susan. So that was just a little taste of what the exhibit looks like. If you're able to make it out, you definitely have to go see it in person to get all of rich detail and color and texture and really get that full-on experience. So now we're going to hear from each of our artists to learn a little bit more about the artwork that they are presenting and kind of what their inspirations were and their process and anything else they'd like to say about it. And just a reminder, if you do have questions or comments for our three amazing artists, you can drop those into the chat. Let's start with let's go alphabetically. So Pepe, let's start with you. I will pull up the piece. It's been a bit of a night of technical shenanigans, I gotta say. Excellent. Fantastic. Yes, Pepe, could you please tell us about this fantastic artwork?
In Spain, sorry.
Spanish.
En Spanish. Este es el último bodegón que he realizado.
This is the last still life that I painted.
Intencionadamente estoy intentando
Intentionally, I'm trying to,
los objetos no sean reales para nada,
so that the objects aren't real, absolutely not real,
pero sin embargo seguir conservando el espíritu del bodegón, de la still life.
but at the same time maintaining the spirit of the still life.
En la mayoría de todos mis cuadros
In the majority of all my paintings,
intento captar el espacio
I try to capture the space.
y estoy buscando como la cuarta dimensión.
I'm trying to capture and I'm trying to find the fourth dimension.
Intentar salir del cuadro.
I'm trying to come out of the painting, that it comes out of the painting.
la profundidad hacia adentro lo he conseguido.
trying to get the depth within, which I'm
Ahora
accomplishing. Now I want to
intento sacarlo.
bring it out.
Mi trabajo no se ha podido identificar con ningún estilo más o menos.
My work, it's difficult to identify it with a specific style.
Algunos me consideran surrealistas.
Some consider me surrealist.
No me siento identificado con ellos.
I don't identify as a surrealist.
Con el estilo que me sentiría más identificado
The style that I identify most with is
es ¿cómo es?
magical,
Magical. No, realist magical. Realist magical.
magical realism. That's the one I identify with most.
La razón por la que pinto con burbujas o con esferas,
The reason that I paint with bubbles or with spheres,
observando incluso ahora el trabajo de mis colegas,
also observing the work of my colleagues here,
en cuanto a intención de realizar el espacio, que es lo que creo que hay en esta exposición,
when we're trying to realize,
de realizar el
to
sentido del espacio.
create the feeling of space.
Ellos observan el espacio hacia el exterior en un sentido amplio, como incluso en este bodegón.
They are realizing the feeling of space, a huge space, a large space, including in this still life.
Pero yo también pienso que ese
But I also
espacio
think that the space
que está en el exterior, también cuando lo profundizas y lo metes hacia aquí, hacia adentro,
that this space also, when they realize it from the exterior and bring it to the interior,
se repite.
it's repeated.
Es similar, lo único que vas disminuyendo en cuanto a espacio.
It's similar. It's just that in terms of space, it becomes smaller and smaller.
Los electrones giran alrededor del átomo,
The electrons go around the atom, the same
que los
as
planetas giran alrededor de las estrellas.
same as the planets go around the stars.
Entonces, para mí la pintura también
Therefore, for me,
tiene que
the
estar
painting,
formada de esas moléculas, de esa forma, ¿no? A través de las esferas.
my work, my work is based on spheres, molecules, atoms.
No sé qué más decir al respecto.
I don't know what else to say in respect to my work.
Los bodegones los suelo
The
utilizar
still lifes I usually use for
en mis trabajos generalmente, pero no es la pieza fundamental.
normally in my paintings there is a still life painting. It may not be the center stage of the painting, but
Es un elemento que está ahí, puesto que en todo espacio existe
it's an element that's there in the space that it exists.
existe una mesa con
A
sus,
table will exist there, a
con sus
chair,
libros, con
a
sus
chair
libros
or a book,
y una ventana a través de las cuales me permite
And
crear
there's also
perspectiva y distancia.
windows which I use to get perspective and distance,
Incluso aunque sean figurativos.
even if they are figurative.
No sé,
I don't know. That's,
creo que
I think,
más o menos, si hay alguna pregunta, pues
I think
podría
that's it.
contestarla.
If anybody has a question, I can answer it.
Could I ask a question?
Please.
Yes.
What is the significance of the blue and white striped snake that seem to be in all of your works?
Cuando empecé a pintar en espacios,
When I started to paint spaces,
hará 30 o 40 años ya,
30 or 40 years ago,
era como una especie de guía que me
it
permitía
was a type of guide that allowed me to
como crear profundidades
create depth
y dirigirme por diferentes espacios o
and allow me to go in different spaces,
plataformas,
platforms,
dimensiones.
dimensions.
Entonces, ahora,
Now.
lo conservo como
No,
casi como una firma.
No, I keep it more or less almost as a signature. I continue to use it as a signature.
Ahora apenas se ocupa el cuadro, la pintura, pero sí lo meto un trozo, ¿no?
So now it doesn't use much space within the painting, but I'm maintaining it, just a little bit of space.
Yeah.
It's much smaller than it was before.
En España llegaron a identificarme como el
Yes.
pintor de la cuerda.
In Spain, I was referred to as the painter with the cord, or the umbilical cord, or the string, the rope.
Great.
So, I think these are indeed, for me, they're really beautiful. Each one of them is a beautiful painting. And I mean, it's in a way, for me, it's getting close to space-time continuum. It's like something may be happening. We don't feel it, but something like this may be happening in us, floating all around. We're kind of deconstructing, reconstructing, multi-universe kind of feel to it. And it's a really beautiful representation where I can imagine, I mean, that's what we do. We imagine things of what this kind of thing we live in. We think we're concrete. We think we're real, but we're really much more like these images. We're continuously falling apart and moving around, loose at the borders, spilling out everywhere.
Particles all sort of jostling around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
There are a number of paintings that are obviously. You like food and fish?
You like, ¿te gusta la comida y el pescado?
Yeah, yes. No, it's not important for me. Only alimentarme es suficiente.
It's
No,
enough.
no,
It's enough.
No tengo muchos elementos que me complazcan para alimentarme, ¿no?
I haven't got a lot of things that really I'm interested in
Pero-
for eating, but
Pero el pez es como que
the fish is like,
me permite estar en dos dimensiones, ¿no?
allows me to be in 2 dimensions.
Si lo dejas volando en el aire,
If it's flying
es
in the
como si
air,
estuviera en el agua.
it's like it's the same as if it's in the water.
Es la sensación de poder estar en diferentes dimensiones a la vez.
It's a sensation of having the power to be at various and at the same time.
A la vez está un poco relacionado con un poco mi filosofía de
My
que
philosophy
existen
is that it's related to
diferentes dimensiones en las cuales
exists in different dimensions, those which,
el ser humano es posible que tenga posibilidad de acceder a ellos
as humans, we are able to get near to them.
y que la ciencia cada vez va
And-
demostrándolo más, ¿no? Que hay
And
diferentes dimensiones.
science is showing and proving that yes, we can get to those dimensions.
Pero es algo muy particular mío, ¿no?
But it's something very private, and so my own philosophies.
Me permite justificar que haya seres que sean capaces de ver el futuro,
It allows me to
justificar que haya
it allows me to
personas que puedan ver el futuro
prove
o
or to say that there are people who can see into the future.
a la vez que la magia
At the
tenga
same
cierta
time,
realidad.
magic has a certain reality to it.
Pero, insisto,
But I
la
insist.
ciencia cada vez va a
Science,
demostrarnos más que hay diferentes dimensiones y que
science is
seremos capaces de llegar a
proving-
ellas.
proving that there are different dimensions, and we are getting close to that as well, to see it.
Yo todavía no.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Fascinating. Ah, that was very interesting. I love everyone's take on what's going on, and that kind of what you were talking about, Pepe, what you're trying to capture out is personal, but also based upon sort of science and the world. I think that's something that we'll be able to find as a bit of a connection between our other two artists, as well as these connections about ideas of what makes up reality and everything else that we can see and touch and everything we can't. So next, Pierre, let's hear from you. I'm gonna pull up.
Thank you. Okay. You want me to start, or are you waiting for the? You gonna pull up the image?
Yes. There we go. Excellent. Please tell us about this fantastic piece.
Okay, so just to give you a bit of the context, as I mentioned earlier, I work both in with the community, and most of my work there is around environmental art and the environment and mental health issues. In my private practice, one of the things that has always kind of, which I'm following, is kind of trying to bridge art and science together. I think that art and science have kind of split apart now several centuries ago, and it's been a mistake. I mean, it's been a big mistake, because I think what we're doing to the planet and we're doing to ourselves is partly related to the fact that we kind of dissected the two apart, and that scientists, you know, kind of not artists, and artists are separate, and so that kind of control and what we do and responsibility and thinking and feeling about what we do has been separated. So we've been able to kind of treat the environment in this kind of detached way, not feeling for it, not a lot, kind of detached from our environment. So so one of the things is about bringing science and art back together, trying to bring it together. And I think there's a bit of a movement towards that, but I'm not sure it's really as strong as it should be. But in any case, one of the things that happened about 2015 is the discovery of gravitational waves. This was predicted a long time ago, but finally we discovered that indeed we live in this kind of jelly, we'll call it time and space. We don't feel it, but when something big happens in this jelly, it sends ripples down the line. It kind of, and we're fortunately far away from these events, and we don't feel them. If we were close, it'd be big trouble for us. But because they're far away, we don't feel them. But in 2015, they were discovered. They do go through us. All the time. Many are going on through us all the time. And these are generated usually by black holes. And that's another story. I mean, black holes, and who knows what they do and what they are. But they also, when something happens in a black hole, or two black holes come together, and you can imagine it's a big bang, a lot of big disturbance in time space, and they create these these gravitational waves. So at that point, there was an artist, rather an astrophysicist, who said, gravitational waves are going to give us an entrance or a door into the understanding of the universe, the door. And by chance, I happened to be living in a neighborhood where they were tearing down houses. And I went to them, I said, can I have some of those doors? And they said, sure. So I collected more than a dozen of these used doors. These are all doors that have a history. The body, the wood itself has been used as a door, people coming in and out, and they have their own history. So they're not perfect looking doors. And I thought, okay, well, what can I do with these doors now? And I had the idea of, okay, gravitational waves, a door, how can I represent them? The next step was, how can I then work gravity, the force of gravity, which we all live, we know it. The moment you get off a chair, you feel it, it's there, but we don't, it's a mystery. How do I work that into the work? And so I thought about then using two aspects. One aspect is different paints with different weights. So when you put a paint down, you mix the paint, some of the paint will sink and some of the paint will rise. And these another linked concept is that these events create metals in our universe. When these big events happen, gold and silver and all that. So these are the colors you'll see in my work. And so this paint that I started to play with and pour on these doors. And the doors are then, as I said, they're gold and silver and black. And as they pour and as they settle, the different layers will come up and down, and you will start seeing some of these bubbles, or some of these different things, that some of the paint sinks and some of them rises. So that gives me the gravity aspect of the paint itself. And then to further that, I spun these doors. I put these doors on a potter's wheel, big potter's wheel, and I spun it so that this paint would go and start moving around in somewhat unpredictable ways. So in this painting, you see a bit of all of this happening. There is a point, a central point, which is the black hole, which is kind of a very black paint. And then there is paint that is kind of it's a bit giving the idea of something falling into the black hole. And then these waves, these concentric circles, are kind of my interpretation of waves, these concentric waves coming out from that event. And they happen as the door is spun. As you can imagine, it took a little while to figure out the technique, so that when the door was spinning, I wasn't going to take my knees out at the same time. So it takes quite a while. It's a bit of a trick to do that. But over time, I learned how to do it, and to do many, many different variations. And although they all kind of thematically coming back to the same theme, which is gravitational waves and black holes, they are kind of different events. There are a series also that focus more on what is called the event horizon, which is what happens right at the edge of the black hole as things fall in. So there's a number of series of the doors just focus on that more than the gravitational waves. But it's ongoing work. As new findings come up about gravitational waves and black holes, it influences me. And I also have a new series of works that I'm starting to work on this same theme. I do it outside, so it's a summer and springtime and early fall work, because it's messy. It goes everywhere. So it's right now I'm not doing much on it, but I have a whole series of doors that I'm planning to work on this coming year as well. So that's essentially an example of this work here. Thank you.
Oh, fascinating, Pierre. I can only imagine what your painting studio, your outdoor studio, what that's like watching.
Backyard
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
That's pretty great. And this idea, this marriage of science and art is fascinating. Because when you think about, tradition, like what you most might think about is things like medical or botanical diagrams. But then things like this, trying to express those ideas, trying to express these theories and these facts in a way that's maybe easier for those of us who aren't as familiar with all the big terms and ideas behind it, so that we can understand what's happening in our universe. I think that's a pretty interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the repurposed doors is fascinating. I take it using uncommon materials is something you do a lot of.
Right. Yeah, it's part of my environmental kind of idea, is to kind of, wherever I can, to reclaim and repurpose materials and put them together in a way, kind of continue the history of their existence in a different way. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think you're right. I mean, I think this is a way of also making more real some of these concepts that are very theoretical and to kind of express them. And I suspect that even to the scientists, there's a potential utility to seeing this through an artist's lens that might actually stimulate their own imagination in their work. So that's where, again, I think art and science need to come together, so that they're moved forward in the way they think about things.
Exactly. Because as you said, science and art both stem from imagination and from questions and wanting to discover.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I have a question for Pierre. Yes. Hello.
Yes, please.
Okay. I think that the explain is okay, but you work with the casualidad,
That it's casual, that it
buscando
happens,
una causalidad.
that it happens for a cause, for a reason.
And then the combinación,
Combination,
has conseguido el efecto
you have created an effect very,
real, un efecto
very
real,
real.
y está como muy bien combinado. Es decir,
It's very well combined
a través de la casualidad has conseguido
through
conseguir el
casualty,
objetivo, ¿no?
casually happening or unintentionally happening. You have
Pues,
created
sí,
that it's the
claro.
reason, the making of it happen.
Okay. That is my impression of the agujero negro.
The black, that's my impression of the black hole.
Yeah.
Did you understand, Pierre?
I'm afraid I didn't quite follow it all. No. Again, yeah. If you could sum up.
Combination, I think I'm trying to understand what he wants to say. I think the combination of it, something happened casually, like you say, you spin it, right?
Right.
And yeah,
Su trabajo es
his
sin intención.
right. He says the work is without intention, but yet at the same time it is with intention because you
Yeah.
want it to happen. You want it
Consigue una
to
intencionalidad.
you create an intentionality.
Right.
That
Yes.
is that I once said.
That's
Yeah.
what he wanted to say.
Yeah, it is a combination of intentionality and also giving up control. I mean, that's something I do in my other work too, is like there's an element of surprise and giving up working the force, the gravity. I'm kind of giving gravity, collaboration with gravity. It's a force I don't control. So there's an element in all of these works that is unpredictable, that is done by gravity, by the force. And the more I do it, of course, the more I can start thinking about controlling it to some degree, but I never can control it fully. And that's okay. I mean, for me, that's good. I like the fact that there is this kind of force within us and outside of us that is there, and it will guide these molecules and these paints in its own way, in a way that I cannot foresee 100% control, 100%. So it is both intentionality and also giving up some of this control. Yeah.
That's again more fascinating discussion about everybody's work. These ideas of intentionality and spontaneity, and all three of you have such unique and individual processes of how you're trying to express your ideas through your chosen medium, and I guess having to do those experiments. It's pretty interesting. And I guess we'll hear next from Susan about your work. Yes, could you please tell us about this piece, Into the Blue?
Okay, well, this piece I lived with for many, many years. It was very slow in its evolution, but it actually began with a visit to Pavilion Lake many years ago, which is in the interior of BC, just north of Lillooet. And it is has the most incredible turquoise color. It's set in Marble Canyon, so the bottom of the lake is white. But also, when I got back to Vancouver, I discovered an article in the Vancouver Sun about these microbialities, some freshwater coral growing in the bottom of the lake. And NASA, as well as various scientists from other institutions, were studying them with the intention of seeing if this early life form could be found on other planets such as Mars. So this really sparked my sort of enthusiasm to work with around those ideas. And I began with a drawing, and then transferred it to the large paper, which turned out to be more difficult than I expected. But nonetheless, I just persevered. Also, in reading about science, many scientists will refer to the fabric of space. And with that in mind, I did some research on very early fabrics and discovered a piece from 5th century Coptic netting, which I sort of used as a sort of a basic idea of how I could lay this out. So it's like a piece of the fabric of space, but it's still grounded in the water of Pavilion Lake. And I'm fascinated by quantum physics, which is why all the little tiny circles and the paper cutting all the paper came from one photograph, which I copied and then blew up time and time again to get the colors that I wanted, and then cut using embroidery scissors all the circles. So in total, this work took 18 years to make. But when I say that, it wasn't 18 years of constant work because I couldn't get the thing to work. So I'd have to go back to it time and time again. And at one point, I didn't even think it was ever going to work. But then suddenly, I don't know what happened. I hadn't worked on it for more than a year. And then suddenly it just came to me and I finished it off. Mm-hmm. And I was absolutely thrilled. But and now, even when I say I finished it, there were parts of me that wasn't really sure it was finished. I mean, I would look at areas and I think that area needs some more work, or, so, but I think everybody goes through that, never quite knowing where to draw the line and say it's finished. But I'm glad it's finally away from me, away from my wall and framed, and I can't do anything further with it now. So, yeah, I'm very interested in quantum physics and the studies of whether it's whether they're waves or particles, and then and how human consciousness plays into that, because apparently as soon as we observe something, it breaks into a particle. I think that's what it is. I find that I read a lot. I did some online courses through Harvard as well, although I don't have a science background. Anytime math came into it, I just had to shut it down. So all I want to do is get a rudimentary understanding so that I can create images in my mind of what I'm envisioning and thinking about. But I just love the idea of thinking of everything as just these tiny, tiny little particles making up absolutely everything. And that there's laws in physics that govern these particles. So how much of what we think of as free will, how much free will do we really have? That's the latest thing that I'm thinking about anyway. But that's beside the point of this piece. So this piece is Ode to Pavilion Lake. But it's into the blue, being into the blue, into the blue, because it's the fabric of space as well. So it's encompassing everything. Yeah, I love the idea of this freshwater coral. I have photographs of it because it was an article in the Vancouver Sun back in the days when the Vancouver Sun published newspapers rather than being online. And there were images of these freshwater coral. They're pretty cool.
They look like sea urchin. Is that one way?
Well, that's what a lot of people say. And I've had some people say that, yeah, this looks like water that they'd love to jump into. But all the time I was working on it, I was intending it to be space with these circles traversing through space, finally out into the blue, disappearing in the blue, because the circles actually start fairly large at the bottom, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller as they go back and forth to the top. The top is meant to be the furthest away, as it's the smallest and the lightest, but also there are circles that continue that pathway. So, and that's why I was always, having such a difficult time making it work, because in a sense it's working on different planes, So, yeah.
There really is that sense of depth and perspective as you go out into the blue, as you say, as sort of these rows or chains of these circles, these particles do get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So that's a great accomplishment for such a flat medium, and just using just layers of things, not using lines or shadows. Yeah.
So the two little ends at the sides and at the tops are meant to evoke the fabric, so that it would be like, they're pinned. It's pinned down in a sense. So
So many layers going on in this piece. It's fascinating to think about.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Pierre.
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean, I think for myself, perhaps some of the listeners, maybe could you tell us a bit more about the technique?
Well, it's fairly simple, really. I have a piece of paper that'll have the color on it. So I use a blender pen as well. So I spend a lot of time creating the color that I want. So I have myriad, copies of the colors, and then I can blend and produce. So the paper is just a piece of paper that I use tiny bit of a very small. Each piece is very small, most of them, and I just use embroidery scissors. They're the smallest little scissors, and I just cut tiny little pieces out, or some of them larger. And at that time, I was really keen on cutting the center out of the circles as well, so that I could fill them with other circles.
Wow.
So, it's, in a sense, it harkens back to a lot of female work, like through history, with women doing, embroidery work and making lace and that kind of thing. It's very detail oriented, but it's also using the tools that women would have used. People have said it would drive them crazy. And, but the funny thing with me is that I find my mind is always going 90 miles an hour all the time. And when I'm working on this, it slows right down. And I love listening to CBC radio, and I can be listening to a program or an interview or something and working at this at the same time. And I can be totally focused on the work I'm doing as well as on the radio program. So, I find it very calming. However crazy that might sound. Not all the time, mind you. Sometimes it drives me absolutely crazy, particularly when I do something and it doesn't work and I have to take it all off again, start again. So it's a bit obsessive, I guess.
You lost me? Can you hear me, Susan?
Sorry?
A question.
Yeah.
First, I can say to you that, okay, in Spanish. ¿Cómo te puedes separar de 18 años de tu vida?
How can you separate from 18 years of your life? How can you have your artwork not with you, and you've spent 18 years together?
Well, I'm at a point in my life where I really want to get things out there. I want other people to have them. It's like sending your child away, I guess, at a certain point in his or her life and letting go. And with this, I've spent so much time with it. I've had enough. It's time to go. But I'm sure I'll get it back again. Yeah, but it would be lovely. It would be so nice. I have sold a lot over the years. Not as complex as this particular one or taking that amount of time, but I'm always thrilled to know that other people have my work and are appreciating it and seeing it. It feels very good to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fantastic. And Susan, I think you had mentioned that sometimes you use actual photographs are what you're cutting up, like copies of photos.
No, I don't use copies of photos.
Mm.
I make copies of photos,
Mm.
but there. I was using the some fine art calendars, and some of the colors. I use the colors that I find in, and I cut that. So I'm not cutting an image out or anything. I'm using
Right.
it just strictly for the colors. However, years ago, like the piece behind me, when I first left university, I would have an image. I would create a piece, a work, and then I would blow it up or I would reduce it. And then I created a sort of abstract patterning. I was very interested in the idea of fractals at the time, but I lost interest in it as I sort of started exploring physics more, and that's all sort of in the past. But who's to say what comes next? I don't know.
Truly.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this work, anything is possible. Anything could happen.
Okay, Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found an image online of a atom. I think it's an atom in a semiconductor. And it is totally abstract. It's like color field painting or something. It's so beautiful that I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, Susan, for you, una medalla a la paciencia.
Medal for your patience.
Oh, thank you.
Pero, no obstante, cuando yo observo tu trabajo, este trabajo en concreto,
When I look at your work, this a piece of artwork specifically,
a pesar de que es hacia el interior de la tierra, hacia el mar en este caso,
even though it goes into the earth inside the lake,
yo sigo viendo el universo.
I continue to see the universe.
Ah, yes. Many people do.
Yeah.
I suppose it's not surprising because the image I took of the lake is just the water, and it is on Earth. So, and that's probably always in the back of my mind. So, yeah.
Good work.
Thank you. I think it is a fascinating show, and I think it's interesting how we all work so differently, and yet we come together on very similar themes and with similar ideas in our mind. Yeah, it's exciting. I took friends there on Monday, and they just loved the show. They looked at everybody's work and tried to pick out the one that they would like, and it was nice to see. It was just lovely to see people really appreciating it. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is interesting how you are all so different, but you're all trying to show these ideas and get across your own personal takes on these ideas and these concepts and theories, and just sharing it. And as we were saying kind of earlier, almost an education to a certain degree, right? Like these very interesting ideas, and you're trying to express that, get that out into the wider world.
Yeah. But it's also, I think, for me, in the exploration through my work, I'm asking myself more questions, which cause me to go get more books out of the library and try to understand what's going on. So, yeah, it's always an exploration.
Totally.
I mean, this is a show that would be really great if we could get it into the science faculty at UBC or somewhere else, you know, somewhere like that, because that's where the scientists and the students hang out in their science courses, and I think that would be great with that venue. I mean, a while back there was something that happened at the gallery out there at UBC. I forget the name now, right now.
The Belkin?
Yeah,
Do you mean
yeah,
the Belkin? Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, that show was around. It was around this the place in Ontario where it's a very deep.
Yes.
Where
I saw that.
I
saw that show.
Yeah, but I found that a little. To me, that whole thing was a little too conceptual. Some of it didn't. It was just didn't make that connection that made the art a little more, or didn't bridge science and art. Some of the pieces were fine, but some of them remained very difficult to kind of make that bridge. I think our work and my reaction to all our work is that if you let it, you don't have to be a master's in fine arts to start making connections. You don't have to, you know, anybody can make some connections to the work, whether it's about the theme or not. I like all of it because it can reach anyone in some way, whatever they see.
Yes, I saw that show too, Pierre, and I came away very disappointed in it, with it, because I was really quite excited by the ideas. But you know, I think my perception of the fine art world is that it's gone so far to the conceptual. You know, the concept behind the work is almost more important than the work itself. And so it sort of leaves out that sort of passion of the artist and the exploration.
Right. It's most art for the art's sake. It's not as much about communication. I think we all part of our work is about communicating. It's part of about sharing, turning concepts into metaphors so that people can approach them and take them somewhere else. But if it comes to within this narrow world of conceptualism, it's just about they understand each other. That's as far as it goes. Not to say that there's a place for that too, of course. But it can be too much, I think, in some of the galleries and for sure.
Yeah.
But there is definitely something very accessible about this exhibition, about the artwork that all three of you produce. As you've mentioned, you don't need a degree in art or science to really get involved in it and have it jump out and speak to you. And even if you're not relating with the intended theme, I think there's something really, really captivating, engaging about the work that all three of you are doing right now.
Thank you.
I would like to reinforce Pierre's opinion.
En cuanto a que el arte es una comunicación.
Art is communication.
Pero nosotros no queremos de dar las respuestas, tenemos que plantearles preguntas.
We don't want to give the answers, we just want to present questions or leave people with questions.
Entonces es apartarte de lo fundamental para que la gente, para que el público pueda plantearse, ¿y esto por qué y para qué?
Public can say this, why is it?
Sin dirigir totalmente,
without directing.
Es decir, dejar la pintura abierta para que esto se pueda interrelacionar.
leaving the artwork open so that it can be related.
Open.
So it
Que-
can be
que-
open.
Que la pintura esté abierta, que no esté cerrada, concentrada, ¿para qué?
Art is
Para
open,
dirigir la contestación.
so it can direct people towards their answer.
That is my opinion.
That's my opinion.
Mhm.
No, definitely.
The only thing I just want to add is I find my colleagues' work all beautiful, and that's also is a word that has kind of been pushed aside for many years from the fine art world. Something is beautiful, well, that's me suspect almost immediately, but I think that they are, and that's so important still to not all
Yes.
work has to be beautiful, of course not, but I think that there is some value for that in getting people connect to it. And
Yes.
that's an important aspect of art, you know. You can't.
Yeah, I agree. Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
for me
if
too.
it's enjoyable to look at, then you're going to stay engaged longer.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think all our work attracts the viewer without having to read all the information that goes along with the piece. If you have to spend all your time reading the information before you look at it, I don't know, I always find that I can get, I don't know, want to move on to the next piece too quickly. So the beauty is a window, is a way into a piece. It's got to appeal in some way to allow the viewer in.
Yeah, totally.
Que pusimos eso, entonces, podía.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion, not only on your individual artwork, but art in general. It's been really great, and talking about science and as well, and community and connection. It's been really great. So thank you, Pierre, Pepe, and Susan, for sharing all of your insights and your inspirations and your processes with us. And thank you for sharing this fantastic art, which is on display at the Meek Art Center in West Vancouver in the exhibition Particles and Paradoxes until February 25th. So if you're watching this while it's up, please go check it out and experience all of these amazing ideas and visions and beauty that these artists have decided to share with us. And as we said earlier, if you want to know a bit more about them, there's some links in the description below. Also, there are links to the Meek, so you can check out all of their other programming that they have, fantastic plays and concerts and film screenings. And when you can go in and pop in and see this great artwork. So thank you, Pierre Leichner, Susan Wolpert, and Pepe Hidalgo for being here and being such open and talented artists.
And thank you, Stephen, for putting us all together.
No. It worked out great.
Yeah, it did.
Thank you.
Great. So we will sign off for now. And please, go check out Particles and Paradoxes and check out the Arts Council's YouTube. We've got some more artist talks coming up in the next few weeks. Take care and stay creative.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.